Well, welcome, Ryan, to the Flower Podcast.
Thank you so much. I'm just thrilled to be longtime listener, first time caller. So I'm thrilled to be here.
I don't think anyone's ever said that. And we need, I have been trying to figure out how to do the calling thing for a long time. Now I think I'm going to reignite that. I love that.
Right.
So, it's so great. Well, I know that you and I have spoken a little bit over the past few months, and I know you've reached out to me and over the past year, and I am thrilled to have Curate as a sponsor of the Flower Podcast now. And I have just really been excited to hear your story and kind of hear how everything came to be. So why don't you jump in wherever you want?
Yeah, for sure. Well, we super excited about being a sponsor as well. We have a heartbeat for small businesses, and what y'all do just equips people with such great information and education. That's super important to us, and we love the opportunity for sure.
Thanks.
Yeah, so a little bit about Curate for those who are unfamiliar. We're a software that automates everything from your proposals to your production and your recipe sheets and your back of house to your profitability, making sure you have that protection to make profits. We automate all of those pieces with really complex businesses like florists. This is our heartbeat, where we came from, and it's cool again just to be able to connect with great partners like yourself who are educating this industry and growing this industry for sure.
Awesome. Well, thanks so much. Well, so how did you start? Where did you begin? How did this all begin?
Yeah, so I married a florist is kind of how it happened. So my wife, long story short, I'll go a little bit deeper on this podcast than maybe
Okay.
I would on other podcasts. My wife was a checker at an Albertsons in Spokane, Washington, and they had a spot come open in the floral department. She was 16 years old, something like that. And she's like, well, why not? Why can't I learn flowers? And so she fell in love with flowers, and she rocked out her job, did a great job there, married me. We moved to Arkansas. We got married in 2010, September 18th, 2010. We moved to Arkansas. There's just an incredible shop in the town we were in where she became a full-time employee. She advanced herself. We moved again, and she became the lead designer at another shop. And
Wow.
that particular shop, unfortunately, had someone change hands in ownership. And as is many times the case in the floral industry, the shop sold significantly less than what somebody would hope that it would. And okay, I'll do it. I thought I wasn't going to share this side of the story, but I'm going to share it. A couple bikers purchased it as a hobby, and when you think of bikers, I think there probably is some incredible floral design bikers. These were not in that category. They just kind of the type of smoking weed in the shop, you know, a lot of other things that were happening. And my wife, about 2 weeks in, she was the only employee that transferred with the shop. All the other employees were let go. She was the only one. About 2 weeks in, she said, "I can't do this. They don't understand floral. They don't understand design." And so we begin to talk and say, well, maybe we should start our own company. Maybe we should find a way to start creating our own designs, our own, and we specifically were looking at the wedding segment, special events. And so yeah, I married into it, and throughout the course of things, we started realizing that there was a huge opportunity. I loved business, I loved studying business and marketing, and my wife was just an incredible floral designer who could execute like nobody's business. And so it seemed to make a lot of sense for us to start our own business. And so we started Twisted Willow Design in 2013. We only had two weddings that first year, but we began to see a whole bunch of growth. And it was really cool to see that progression from me marrying a great florist to seeing her grow in her career to being the point where I was actually actively a part of the industry and putting up chuppahs on ladders that were taller than I wanted to be on.
Yes, I know. Oh my gosh, that's so interesting. So you don't know this, but that's how I met my wife, is selling flowers to a flower shop where she worked.
Oh,
And
no
so,
way.
yeah, so it's kind of funny. Yeah, so we kind of maybe we have that in common a little bit. So,
That's super cool.
yeah, it is. And of course, now it it just keeps going. But well, that is incredible. And so did you have a tech background, or was this something you just had a passion for because you saw a need?
So I've always felt in the back of my mind, I'm going to learn how to program. had for years not done it, and which I was still at this point in time at 2010, I guess I was 27-ish, 28-ish or something like that. So I wasn't kind of that 20-year-old out of college who's starting a tech company, but I actually had worked in a tech company kind of on the side, and it was more of like a startup. But it didn't work out. I was doing everything everybody was telling me to do. They were all saying, go get a patent and, you know, I'm trying to think of some of the other great quote unquote great instructions that people were giving me for what to do. But I went and did all this stuff and nothing was working. And I realized what I learned out of that was I wasn't creating something that created a little bit of value for someone.
Mm.
I was doing all the right steps and getting the patents and doing marketing plans and winning startup competitions, but I wasn't getting a customer to get value and to want to pay for that value. And so in that process, that was when my wife and I also were starting up our floral company. And so that one was just, nosediving into the ground. And in the process of her and I working through this, we just realized there was just this problem, and a lot of it was just hacky solutions. We were creating this Excel sheet that looked like Dr. Frankenstein had created it so that we could build our recipes. I mean, seriously, like we were scared it was going to burn down a village or something. It worked, it was alive, but it was kind of our way of working, and we built a solution that kind of worked, wasn't super efficient, and so we just kind of had this thing of we just had a problem to solve, which was so funny. Again, tech background. I tried so many things to start so many businesses, and all of them just kept failing because I had all these great ideas. When the best idea that we had, the best idea I ever had was marrying my wife. But the second best idea I ever had was solving that problem with me and my wife working together and saying, okay, there's got to be a solution to this. And yeah. So a little bit of a tech background, nothing successful per se, but more of just trying to solve it. I knew how to build websites. I knew how to do branding. And that was about the extent of it before we really started honing in on this problem that florists face.
Wow. So when did Curate start?
So like I mentioned, we only did 2 weddings that first year. Both of them were people that we knew. And we started recognizing this problem toward the end of that year. We started getting enough potential new clients in, and we realized how big of a headache it was to get back an accurate proposal quickly. We could get
Mm.
back an inaccurate proposal very quickly, and we could get back a super accurate proposal in a long time. And my wife would, again, she wanted to be accurate with it, and she had been in the industry for nearly 10 years, so she definitely understood the concept of saying, I know that's going to be about $100 and working that way, but she just felt a lot more comfortable actually specifying this out. And especially, and this has been over 10 years ago, but everybody will recognize this, especially in the year 2010, when my wife and I started our marriage, there was 2 other things that got started: Instagram and Pinterest. Those are the 2 other things that got started. So all of a sudden, nobody had this flower book that where they turned to page number 7 and said, hey, I want this arrangement in your flower book. People were walking in from Pinterest and Instagram with these insane, elaborate things that some florist somewhere had created and then saying, I want this. And there was no book with no recipe with that in there. And so we were realizing, okay, if we want to make sure we aren't losing money, we're actually like listing out what's inside of this. And so as we were doing that process, my wife would have potential brides that were working with her, and she'd tell them, she told one in particular, she said, hey, give me 7 days and I'm going to get a quote back to you. Day number 6, she had spent 2.5, 3 hours working all the flowers out for this large event, trying to create a proposal in Word that looked somewhat decent. And then she opened her email to send this to the bride, and the bride had already sent her a message saying, hey, I know you were putting together a proposal, but I decided to go with another florist. And my wife's like, I just spent 3-4 hours trying to work on this for you, and you didn't even take a look. And that was a super frustrating. I just saw it in my wife's face. That's a super discouraging moment when you're putting
Yeah.
your time and energy and creative passions into solving a problem for someone that they hadn't even paid you for yet, and you miss out on it. And so that was a key moment that we realized something's got to change. There's got to be a quicker, more effective way to deal with the creativity that's going into this. And there was a particular moment at our dining room table where she was sitting there. She had the Frankenstein spreadsheet up. She had a Google Forms up or whatever the form tool it was for inquiries. And she had this free accounting software up. And then she had a price list from Bashan Skinner, who was our floral wholesaler at the time. And it was an older price list, but it's all we had, this physical printed up price list. And she had all these things laying on the table. And it was at that moment that I looked at all of those things on the table and I said, you know what? I I think we can do this in a lot quicker time than what we're having to take right now. And I started talking to her. I saw it kind of felt like Sherlock Holmes. I saw how, if the name was Michaela, well, we're having to retype Michaela 17 times. And if you type Michaela 17 times and your name's not Michaela, you're going to misspell. And somewhere you're going to give the customer a bad experience. And so I realized, like, here's all the places that goes. There is a way for us to create a tool that can automate where all of these pieces go. And so that was what we realized. Like, my wife was spending way too much time. We weren't being super profitable, and she didn't feel super confident in what she was putting out, right? Because it's this Word documents with photos kind of like cropped and pasted in there. And so that's when we realized there's just got to be a solution for it. And we looked around, we didn't see anything that fit the needs. And so we started building it.
Wow, that's incredible. Well, and that is a real need. And I think especially nowadays, I just feel like people, it's about speed. It's about how fast can you get to turn around this proposal to these potential clients. I know last night I was at a dinner and we were talking about, there were some wedding planners at the table and there were some florists at the table, and we were all talking about this, and it was just kind of like, knowing what to charge in an efficient way. And the thing is, why do you have to reinvent everything every single time?
Right.
Why not create a template that kind of works, or formulas that you can just tweak a little bit, okay, this thing's going to be, instead of an 8-foot table, it's a 12-foot table. Well, we know what this costs, so we just, we math it out. And sometimes florists are afraid of math, but that's why something like this, I think, is even more important. Is it kind of helps alleviate some of that. When you look at what Curate does, what do you think is the biggest benefit to people, that are using a program like this?
Yeah. So a program like this as a whole, I can speak to what our customers have said, but there's four key things we find that are the true value, right? But forget the features, forget the name Curate. Just what am I really trying to accomplish? Right. So there's four key things. Number one, they're trying to save time. They're copying and pasting data from one place to another place. They're using these tools that don't work as well as they could. Traditionally, most of our people who are using our software are the sharpest person at their company. And it's not like they can hand off something that's really technical, really difficult to another team member, because then they may mess it up, and then there's additional work. So it's saving them time is a big reason people come. The second is increasing confidence. So what I mean by that is there's two forms of confidence. One is confidence that my brand is being communicated. I feel confidently that I'm presenting the best version of myself. I want to get this awesome wedding. In 2022, there's so many weddings that the question is not, can I get a wedding? The question is, can I get the weddings that I'm excited and I'm passionate about? And so you've got to have a way to be able to be confident in what you're presenting. But the flip side of that is confidence in your pricing. Not feeling like, okay, I'm sticking this out there because I knew I got to get this out there quick, but I'm not sure exactly what flower pricing is going. Nobody's sure what flower pricing is, and Curate can't solve that exactly. That's crazy right now. But still, like, there's those protections that if I just keep pricing, there's this process where these small business owners have so many things going on that they just keep pricing that bridesmaid bouquet at $100 because they've been doing it for 15 years. But you're losing money if that's you're still just doing that same thing, or else you're getting very small bridal bouquets, one or the other. I'm doing a single rose, So it's that confidence that I'm pricing correctly and I'm able to do it in a quick way and be confident in it. Another thing is increasing alignment. So you got team members or you got freelancers that work with you and you're having to like educate them, or if somebody has COVID and they're in quarantine and all of a sudden, like, all you have is just the notes that they scribbled down in a notebook. that can be a problem, if they're trying to be able to figure out what your chicken scratch is and how exactly it works. So it's huge that people have the ability to be able to increase that alignment. And I've heard of some of the most incredible florists that I have ever met that would hold on to things like, let's say, ordering flowers. They would hold on to ordering the flowers because they knew if a mistake happened there, the entire thing was wrecked. So they had to find a way to be able to price those out and to be able to find out how many flowers we need to order, but they couldn't let that go to other people. So that's the other benefit of this, is you're able to let other people take over that. And then the last thing is certainly not least, is more profit, right? They want to make sure, am I
Right.
charging the right amount? Number one. And number two, am I paying the right amount? Am I buying extra buckets of flowers that I don't have to? So that's generally the value that we see out of it. People, when we did a survey of our user base recently, the main thing that they valued in terms of features and functionalities was just having an all-in-one tool that could do all of those pieces, something that could save them time. I've heard of people that have saved hours a month just from a simple, we have a tool called drag and drop from Pinterest, like a Pinterest integration, but you just grab the photo and you just drop it onto the proposal. And their current way of working, it takes 2 minutes to download a photo, find the folder it's in, pull it in, recrop it, resize it, rotate it. It takes so much time to go through that process when someone can just simply just drag and drop from Pinterest. So when we've heard from people is that they love everything from the drag and drop from Pinterest all the way to the recipe creation and the shopping list creation, because it's an all-in-one tool.
Mm, wow. I think back to a big wedding I was involved in, and this person did a lot of her tabulating as far as stem counts manually.
Mm-hmm.
And the thing I hear is I mean, just the idea that you could catch mistakes, for example,
Mm-hmm.
like she ended up being 50 bunches short on something, but we
Oh
didn't
my
even
gosh,
know it
yeah.
till the day of wedding. And we were able to cover it because of how we were
Right.
using that product. We could just figure something out. But it was like at the time, you kind of have this like, oh my gosh moment.
Mm-hmm.
And something like this, I think you would know immediately that somehow this calculation didn't transfer to your totals or something. And, I just think how many mistakes, well, you just said it earlier, it's the confidence that comes with
Right.
knowing peace of mind. This works. This is something that's uh it's like your second brain almost, where it's kind
Sure.
of making sure that you're covering your bases. And I think that's really great. And and so many I mean, florists and wedding professionals, Pinterest is one of the first things. I feel like now, it used to be Martha Stewart's wedding magazines they'd bring in and flip through. Now it's Pinterest. I mean, now that's
Yep.
what the images that, when they create their own storyboards or their idea boards that they want to kind of pass along. And how great to incorporate some of that in there so easily. I just think that's incredible. Um, when people are putting together, once they kind of work through the process of using a program like this, like, and I know, and this is kind of not a fair question because I know that it depends on the size of the wedding, but
Sure.
how long, like, let's say an average wedding, I mean, we're just trying to be general here. Like, how long do you think it could take from start to finish to produce a proposal?
Sure. Yeah. So it does. You're exactly right. That varies from person to person. So on our side, we see some people that on a general process, they're taking, for Curate, like if you got your template set up, I'll just use my wife as an example. She would set up a template. And the night before she even met with people, she would just duplicate that template with the information that they gave, and it just automatically happened for her. So she walked into the meeting with the talk with the clients, and literally, and we don't recommend this for everyone, but if you're a Curate Pro, some people do this. In the consultation, she's actually adding the flowers in, and oh yeah, and having a conversation and plugging them in, because she's already got the form filled out of how many grandmas are going to be there and how many tables there. She already had that filled out before she walked into there. That was not what it was about, selling a vision and about giving them a price. And so in her case, there were times where they were leaving the consultation with a proposal because she had
Wow.
set it up to be able to do that. Now, obviously, I know some people, there's this great florist out of Phoenix, I think, that does they have a two-person strategy, right? One person is plugging it in while one person is talking and selling them on it. But yeah, it just dramatically reduces the time. So if you're just doing a visual only proposal, I know people, they can spend 2 hours, 3 hours on a visual only proposal, really trying to build it and sell it. Our software reduces that time to 30 minutes because, again, you're dragging and dropping. If you got 30 photos, well, you're going to spend an hour just downloading those photos from Pinterest and uploading them alone. And that's you limiting yourself to 30 photos because that's what you want visually. But then when you add recipes on top of that, there's a couple different patterns I see in floral work. One is, hey, I want my prices in before I hand over the proposal, and the other is, okay, I'm going to sort of go market rate 250 on this, and then I'm going to build up to that once I get the pricing in for the actual flowers, and I'm going to make sure it still looks incredible, but you're getting $250 worth of product, and I'm going to build up later. Our software handles both of those dynamics. But if you're doing both ahead of time, that's a lot of time and effort for you to have to spend. And so it varies from person to person, but we've had people that say, they would spend 3 hours, 4 hours on a proposal, and it just reduced that proposal length by so much time by them being able to automate all those pieces.
Hmm. Yeah, and that's huge, especially in a year like this where we're supposed to have so many weddings.
Hmm.
And and if you're a florist and maybe you book, I don't know, 70% of the things you quote, the proposals you put out
Right.
there, you're going to have some people that you don't connect with, and that's okay. What isn't it even better the fact that you're not wasting extra time with proposals
Right.
that maybe you don't even end up getting? So
Yep.
that's even more of a savings in a way. I'm curious if people do things like I don't know, like rentals and things like
Mhm.
that. How does this software kind of allow that to be incorporated into what you do?
For sure. Yeah, everyone in this industry does a little bit of rentals, right? Like, anytime we hop on a
Right.
call, we'll say, "Hey, do you do rentals?" Most of the time they'll say no, but the truth of the matter is everyone has some level of rentals in the basement. We had a basement just full of rentals in our shop. And we had one particular time where there's these white stinking pillars, December 5th, 2018.
Uh-huh.
It's bad when you know the date, when you can recite the
Uh-huh.
date. That in January of that year, we booked this wedding for that date, and we are like, yeah, we got these two white pillars, so we got it booked. And then in May of that year, we 5 months later booked another event on that exact same day, and we sold the pillars again. And we did not find out about this until about November 30th of that year, about a week before the wedding, that we were going through and doing that, doing the work to figure this out. And we're like, oh no, we just double booked our pillars and we didn't have any white pillars. So we spent part of our week running back and forth around St. Louis, trying to go. We're good friends with the people at exclusive events over here. So running around, we went to exclusive events, and finally we found some an hour away, and we drove an hour there, got the pillars, drove an hour back. But that was time out of our week that we spent trying to figure out how we were going to make this happen. And so even if it's just two white pillars, they could be the bane of your existence. And so for
Yeah.
us, what we realized, like, is there such an importance in being able to track your inventory levels, specifically on your returnables, is what I term them inside. Your returnables could be shears if you wanted to, or a ladder, or your candelabras, or whatever they are. It's something that's going out, and I need to double check that I got enough of them. And so our software, and any software that has rentals management, should have that ability for you to say, I got these two events that were booked by two different salespeople on the same day, same time. Is this booking out, and is it throwing up an alert saying, hey, heads up, this is overbooked? And one of the things we actually built this last year based on customer feedback, I like to joke, I don't have a dog in the fight. My wife is the florist, I'm the tech guy. So, I'm the guy that gets an elbow in the ribs in the middle of the night whenever somebody's working saying, hey, why is this, thing not working?
Sure.
Um, and especially when, my wife's a full-time stay-at-home mom now. She sold her company a couple of years ago. So the dynamics have changed a little bit. I don't get as many elbows in the ribs as I used to get. But it was such a headache to put those things together, and it's such a savings to be able to very quickly. Something we built in the last year is just a range report. I can put for the next 3 months. Let me just look at all of the rentals that are being used over the next 3 months, and then it throws it red if you're going to be overbooked on any particular date as you're scrolling through that timeline. So it's really powerful for people. Again, the specific needs. If you're not using rental software out there and you're listening to this, there's so much power to being able to do that. Now, you could just know it yourself, but we found a lot of people, again, one sickness and it messes you up. One time in quarantine and it could take out that one person who kind of knows everything by heart, as opposed to having a system and it just increases your confidence, when you have a system that can automate some of those pieces.
Sure. Well, and I think of even like on a smaller scale, like with, you know, 6-inch cubes, for example, or
Mm-hmm.
cylinders, and that you have a lot of them, but then okay, maybe some don't come back from a wedding, and now you are short numbers, and now
Right.
if you want to know that okay, in the future this is going to be a problem. I need to solve that problem before the day of, because you don't want to get caught, and it's great that it flags things like that.
Well, what's important, again, it's not even about the software, it's just about the problems that small business owners face, is how
Sure.
many times you touch these things. My wife and I we did this, one of the largest weddings we did had this huge hanging Lysianthus. I can't think of the correct term now. It's been 3 years ago, and I've tried to forget it. Um, but this huge hanging Lysianthus look that was just going from side to side across this venue, and we had about 10,000 stems, but we counted how many times we touched each of those stems. Right, we had to pull them in, we had to cut them, we had to prep them, we had to pull them out to tie them in bunches in it. And when you get done counting it, in 1 week across our team, we touched those 100,000 times. When you just counted up how many times I touched each of these stems and add them together, when you got that many things that you're touching and moving around, it's so easy to miss one detail, and it can wreck the event because you're so focused on one area and you just miss one piece. Like you said, I just accidentally miscopied one piece into my Excel file wrong and I got the wrong data, or I had accidentally forgot that somebody had broken, or I wasn't even told. Right, that's always a fun one.
Right.
I wasn't even told that someone had broke that 4-inch glass cube. Well, now I'm wrecked. And so it's super huge that you just have built those systems in your company. And that's really what it is, building the systems. And maybe it is an Excel sheet and you guys have it down in your wisdom, but that's important, right? That you have enough people who understand how to use that, and that it's working in a really effective way, and that you got that system in place.
Mm. Well, and I know, well, I've been recently indoctrinated into the world of Excel, and I'll comment more on that some other day, but all I know is that more than once, I'm thinking I'm copying and pasting everything, and next thing I
Hmm.
know, where did that flower go? Where did
Right.
this thing go? Or where did this price didn't transfer correctly? And it's just human error, and I mean that's just
Hmm.
part of it. And if you can eliminate human error with processes like this, it's just, oh my gosh, I can't imagine it doesn't help you sleep better at night. Just I know when I find a mistake in one of my spreadsheets, I'm like, oh my gosh, what else have I missed along the way somehow?
Yeah.
And then you spend time going back and trying to retrace your steps and it's just more time you waste. And so I think having a process, and I know that any business that's trying to put a foundation together to grow, processes are so important. Just like you said
Right.
earlier, all it takes is one person being out sick. Or I know last night at this dinner, somebody was talking about somebody was in a car accident on the way to an event.
Oh,
Okay,
no.
now they were okay and everything was fine, but it was like they were late getting there because of it. And it's great to have, notes. So let me ask this. So when you put together your wedding on Curate, how does that, like, what are all the things, like, check? I mean, I know there's all these things that you can generate with it. I'd love to hear more about that.
Yeah. So again, in the survey we did recently, we had over half of our users said that the main thing they came to our software for was just an all-in-one tool where it's got all of the key pieces. And anybody that says they're an all-in-one tool is no one's an all, we don't wash your
Right.
buckets for you, unfortunately, for those out there who are hoping for a bucket washer. I'll stop by your shop if I'm ever in your town, and I'll help with the buckets. But outside of that, we can't help with it. But the key thing is the key elements of their company and of running an event. I've got all of these key elements solved. And so we had, I like to tell the story of Bianca, who is an Australian florist. She had just got this exclusive island contract with this hotel on this island in Australia, and had just had a baby a few months before. And I was actually telling my development team, this is the conversations that go on inside Curate. I'm talking to all these developers and these tech nerds, and I was telling the story of Bianca today, how the problem that happened to her is her top two employees quit at the beginning of wedding season, and that was like almost half her shop staff, and she just in her words, she just went into a depression. And because the thing is, she couldn't give a proposal to that exclusive island without having all of those pieces, right? She had to have the proposal, but she had to have the stem counts to feel confident about it and to know what do I need to be ordering for. And all of those pieces were intertwined. They were all this, spaghetti. Everything was connected together. And those proposals just kept piling up. And I love her story so much because she sent me an email saying thank you several months later after they signed up for the software, because she said you'll never have any idea about the impact. That's something that ties all these people. There was plenty of free proposal softwares out there that she could have used, but what was different was she was using a tool that had the flowers integrated in the process of creating the proposal. But then those flowers also talked with the shopping list and automated some of those pieces for her. And so she said the pile had got up to like 40 proposals. And again, she had a new baby and she
Wow.
just fell into depression. And with the tool and with a lot of legwork from her for sure and her sister, they were able to get out of the pile of proposals that they had behind them. Because again, to the point, it wasn't just another proposal software. There are tools built in, such as the ability to when you are saying, "Hey, I'm going to have this king table, or I'm going to have this chuppah that I'm going to be putting together." You're able to underneath that put all of the recipes associated, all of the ingredients, every flour. Let's say that you find out a week, 2 weeks out that they don't have that flour, or that flour has moved from $2 a stem to $12 a stem, right? You have a record of exactly what was I going to use where, and I have the ability in the tool now to be able to make those adjustments. But it's not just for pricing. It's something that when she would get done with the proposal, she would have her proposals done, she would have her recipes done, but those recipes tied to the shopping list, and that was automatically done for her. So it said, here's exactly, so she didn't have to go through and be like, all right, how many orchids do I have in the bridal bouquet? How many orchids do I have in the bridesmaids? How many bridesmaids are there? It just automated that work for her. So we have that shopping list piece. And if you have multiple events, 5, 10 events on a weekend, or we've got a tool called the game plan that migrates all of those shopping lists together into one larger shopping list. So when people are talking with, wholesalers, Scott, like they have the ability to more accurately send in this list of what they're needing. And on top of that, there's what we call the recipe sheet, which is I've got to get my team prepped for production so that everybody can make these arrangements. If it's one person, there's enough great points about having a software, but it gets even more complicated when you bring in that first freelancer. who's just showing in for the weekend, and they're your sister-in-law, and now they got to learn, like, how much can I use, right? And you see them over there stuffing too much in there, and they're like, oh, it looks prettier when I stuff, when I add extra. You're like, it does look like that's a 7 cappuccino rose pretty, but we're going to do a 5 cappuccino rose pretty. Like, that's the pretty that we're
Yeah.
going to do. And it protects your team with alignment by having that recipe sheet. So there's so many components and tools that are really integrated and necessary for you to be successful. But our software just automates that. So everything from the rentals list, how many rentals are there? Can I print this out for my warehouse team so that they can go back and pull them? It even has photos on there. So when it's 1 a.m. and the husband like me is up at the Carmel room trying to figure out, what does footed mean? All of these have feet. What does footed on this face mean? And like, you've got a picture there to be able to let people like me know, oh, that's what you mean by footed. And so all of those pieces are just integrated in a way that lets you know, hey, can I execute this? Am I actually going to make money off of this? Be excited doing it, do what I love, but still make money off of it. And is it going to be something that's going to save me time for my company?
Wow. Yeah, that's so great. And then are these kind of lists, uh, these lists can be used for like checking things back into, like when you're okay, because you've seen the trucks and the vans, I'm sure, after they've taken down a wedding and it backs
Yep.
up and it's kind of a hot mess going on, and you're trying to make sure you got everything or stuff's not broken and all that. I mean, you can use them in reverse too, I would think.
Yeah, yeah. On our rentals tab, now a lot of people like to print it just because they like the physical copy, which is great. But on our rentals tab, we have the ability to be able to mark and say, oh, these were returned, and it'll have a pop-up box. It'll say how many were returned. And if you had 9 go out and you type in the number 8 there, it's going to mark it and it's going to update your inventory that you now only have 8 that came back from that event. So you have
Oh,
that ability within the platform to do that. And then even complicated things like multi-day rentals, right? If you're saying, hey, this goes out on Friday, but she said she's going to bring it back to me on Monday, our tool has the ability to black it out for that entire weekend. So you don't have this, it's 2020 and there's a lot of weddings going on this year. So you don't have that weird situation where you weren't planning on it happening until Sunday, but you forgot that you committed it to somebody for Friday through Monday. And so you have that ability within there as well to be able to mark this. And I've got some crazy ideas. I know how to do this, but we're not there yet as a software. Uh, Scott, there's this thing that we know how to do, but someday we'll do it. I'm going to go ahead and be innovative here. There's an ability. There's some technology out there that allows you to have the entire truck packed with stuff, and you could pull up your phone and just click a button, and it'll check the truck for you and say, "Oh, you're missing a one Shivari chair." And then you go, oh, let me go find out where that one Shivari chair is, and you can run back upstairs to the top of the venue. There's technology out there that's enabled. No one's done it right, but it's out there, and it's something that's someday I dream of doing. In the
wow.
future.
Yeah. Well, that'll be an update I know people will be excited about, because how many times do things get left behind by accident?
Or
Um,
or tipsy grandma walks off with your expensive vase. She didn't have any bad intentions. It just looked pretty.
you're right. She didn't know any better, bless her heart. But that's so funny. That is so funny. But I love that. I really do. I guess I'm curious, have there been, people that maybe have been Curate customers? Have there been any changes or things that have kind of happened recently that maybe they don't even know about yet, or things that are coming that might be? And I know you don't want to, you might not be able to answer that, but I still am curious. Always curious.
Yeah, for sure. We're always releasing new things. I'll go ahead and say the thing I can't say, which is we've got some really, really important announcements coming out, really exciting announcements coming out in the next 3-4 months. We've been working on something under wraps for the last 18 months, and it's it's absolutely going to change the industry in more ways than we already have. But I can't go into that. We'll just sort of leave that hanging there, leave the cliffhanger. But some
I
of the
love
cool
it.
stuff that we have that we have released, like I mentioned, that rentals range report. That's just a top of the industry report that's never been really accessible for people to very quickly and easily look over 3 months, 5 months at a time, and within 15 seconds, I kid you not, within 15 seconds, you can look over the next 5 months and see every single time you've overbooked a particular rental. It's just so quick for you to very quickly see and have those flagged. Another really powerful thing that we've released in the previous months is our new theme. We have a brand new theme that came out, and we've it's just been it's been the coolest opportunity to be able to release the new theme. It's called the Inspiration theme, and it really plays on a really impactful and engaging way to create a proposal visually, but still be mobile friendly. So one of the challenges that we have always had and always will have is the ability to create a proposal that's mobile friendly. So if the granddaughter is on the phone and the grandma is on her iPad, how do they both get a great experience? Are we just creating a PDF that when they zoom in, the
Yeah.
photos are pixelated or whatever? So we've always been mobile friendly as a standard, but the inspiration theme just bends that, and it creates really intriguing layout of photos and mood boards that allows you to not look like a boxy mobile friendly frame like a MailChimp newsletter or whatever. It has a really engaging way that has photos laid out. It has color palettes integrated throughout. We've increased the number of photos. We've always been really dedicated to this mobile friendly experience so that your customers have a great experience no matter what type of device that they're on. But we previously had it limited to 8 photos on each line item because of some limitations with that. We figured out a way to expand that so every single line item has 20 photos. If you got a bridal bouquet with
Wow.
9 photos, they can click on one of those photos and it will expand for them to see the full idea inspiration. Again, they don't have to zoom in and hopefully be able to catch the picture of it. So that inspiration theme just has been an incredible improvement to the platform, and probably one of the biggest thing that has drawn a lot of excitement over the last couple months.
Yeah. And the other thing you mentioned earlier when you were telling that story about the florist in Australia, um, how user friendly is this for like other companies around the world?
Sure. Yeah, it's got we've got I think 10, 12 different supported currencies. We've got the ability for you to have multiple date formats. So, in other countries they have the day, then the month, then the year,
Right.
versus hashtag America, where we do the month, then the day, then the year. So we've got the ability to support A4 printing. So yeah, if you've got an international audience, we absolutely love our international customers. And obviously, with anything, there's always going to be nuances. But one of the great parts is even most of the fields on our proposals are customizable. So if you're in another language situation, 95% of the area on the proposal is customizable to your language, which is really powerful when you're trying to communicate to someone in another language for sure.
Yeah. Wow. I'm really excited about that because, it's not something we share all the time, but probably like 25% of our listening audience is outside the US. And
Oh, that's
so,
cool.
yeah, sometimes we get that like, oh gosh, I wish we could do that. But, yeah. So I'm excited to hear that, especially too. Um, the other thing, you said this earlier, and I thought, oh my gosh, especially nowadays, talking about just in 15 seconds being able to see products that you have oversold for events. I mean, nowadays in sourcing containers or
Hmm.
vessels or different products that you need for weddings, you need every bit of 5 months sometimes
Right.
or more, yeah, as you're looking out to make sure you get these things in time because of just shipping delays and things like that. I think that's really, really important. Well, Ryan, we've covered so much. What piece of advice would you want to leave our listening audience with?
It's always be transparent. Everybody struggles with the concept of imposter syndrome, where they're like, oh, I feel like I'm having to put on a front and I'm having to feel, try to be someone. And there's a lot of people that buy into that, fake it till you make it. And I used to too, in like previous startups that I tried that failed. But it was so awkward and so depressing for me. And I made this crazy decision to just start telling people stuff probably that I shouldn't, like, well, I don't know. Like saying that the words, I don't know. That's a great question. I may have to follow up with you on that one. And not being, not being Google all the time and acting like I've got everything together. And what's been so powerful about that is there have been so many incredible opportunities that people would normally say you'll miss if you're that transparent, that I haven't, that people have appreciated the transparency in. And I think there's so much value to that, because so many times florists and small businesses have this idea that I have to be this perfect picture of a business person when you aren't. My wife wasn't, I wasn't. Like, it took a team. It took for our company, it took a team. It took multiple people to figure out some of these pieces. You aren't supposed to be perfect. And anytime you get caught into this thing, like, I got to put up this front, you're just pushing down the opportunity later down the line to actually solve the problem. And so I really encourage people, like, when you're making decisions, don't be scared of those tough decisions about, maybe in those tough conversations about, maybe I don't have all the pieces of my business side together, or even reverse. Maybe your business side is rocking and your design side is not that great. Don't put up be willing to be vulnerable and transparent in spite of the fact it's going to hurt you, because you're going to find out things in open conversations and solve problems a lot sooner by having that transparency. So I'm just a big advocate of being transparent. Don't let the concept of the imposter syndrome just tear you down and keep you from actually being able to grow past those things where you know that there's growth needed.
Thank you for sharing that. I feel like that's something people struggle with all of the time, and I really appreciate you sharing that. Ryan, thank you so much. Thank you for letting us into the world of Curate and showing us all the things it does. And I'm just excited about all the people that you help. And thank you. Thank you so much.
Yeah, well, I really appreciate you having me on. Again, we have a heartbeat for small businesses, and I like to tell my team, anytime I'm annoying about, like, hey, we got to get this right. I'm like, I just have the voices of 1,000 people that I've talked to that are florists and wedding planners, caterers, and these people are saying, man, if there was just only this tool that could. And so that's what drives us at Curate. We just have a heartbeat for these small businesses. And I'm very thankful for programs like yours that help provide that education and that growth to help them move forward.